Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 189. We're going to talk about the battle royale going on over Jeffrey Epstein's estate and how the executors of that estate are trying to hamstring the lawyers and the survivors into taking settlements without going after the other people in this case. Now, we all understand that can't occur, right? Anyone who's following this case understands that this is their MO. This has always been their MO, to pay off witnesses for silence and to make sure that the co-conspirators are always kept in the shroud of secrecy. And they're attempting that again here. What the executors want, what the executors of the estate want, is to limit the liability of other people who were involved if the survivors take a cash settlement from the estate. The lawyers, on the other hand, are going a completely different route. The lawyers for the survivors and the Attorney General for the Virgin Islands, they're going a different route. They want it to be stipulated in the agreement that if the survivors take a cash payment from Epstein, that is not going to stop them from going after other co-conspirators in the same manner. And it shouldn't, right? Just because Epstein is dead, you're not going to make him the fall guy. That's not going to be allowed. All of these other people are just going to skirt away without any sort of justice. Zero chance that's happening. That's not going to occur. And the battle royale in the Virgin Islands is the main battlefield for this. This is where it's all happening. This is where the lawyers and the executors of the estate are butting heads right now, and this is the main sticking point. And I think that the lawyers for the survivors are going to stick to their guns on this one because they understand what's at stake. They understand that these people that helped Jeffrey Epstein need to be taken down as well. And I think that a lot of these survivors, or at least a good number of them, are ready to take this all the way to the conclusion and not only go after Jeffrey Epstein, who is obviously dead now, but they want to go after all of the people who were involved. And I'll tell you what, we'll be here, right, side by side, shoulder to shoulder with them as they pursue their justice, because what we heard from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals earlier was a travesty of justice. And I've said it once and I'll say it again. I think we're going to see different results in the Virgin Islands. I just have this funny feeling, this gut feeling that things are going to be different in the Virgin Islands. And I think that's going to become the epicenter for justice in this Jeffrey Epstein case. So let's jump into this article, shall we? The article is from The Sun, and the headline is Royal Fallout. Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking survivors plan to sue Prince Andrew. Yeah, well, they should, okay? Prince Andrew knew what was going on. If he was involved with any of their abuse and he knew what was going on, he was enabling Jeffrey Epstein, he was around, why shouldn't he get sued? Furthermore, why shouldn't he be prosecuted criminally for what he did to Virginia Roberts? That's the real elephant in the room, right? The civil suits are fine and well, but this man needs to be held accountable for what he did criminally. Now, when we talk about the other enablers and whatnot, I would sue everybody involved if it was me. If I was one of the lawyers in this case, I would go Saul Goodman and sue every single person I possibly could. With Andrew, not only would I sue him, but I would pursue every single channel I possibly could to make sure that he paid criminally as well. And if I was one of the lawyers for these survivors, I would not stop until that goal was reached, because the evidence is there. It's not like this is because there's a lack of evidence. This is only because these people are so high profile and they're so well protected by their friends in government and the intelligence agencies that it's very difficult to pierce their armor. And that's why it has to be a consistent battle on a day-by-day basis, the way we battle it out here and the way other content creators are going hard in the paint as well. Because if not, these people will sweep this under the rug, and they will let this whole entire case go away. And we're not going to allow it. What are we going to turn our backs on these survivors again? How many times are people going to bounce on these girls? How many times are people going to eject on these girls and not stand tall? What sort of real man out there sees this case and isn't enraged enough to want to take action? If you're one of them limp-wristed dudes out there that think it's okay to beat up on girls, or that what Jeffrey Epstein was doing was cool because he was paying, they were prostitutes, you need a chin checking, because any real man out there with a mother, a sister, a wife, a girlfriend, any female people that they care about in their lives sees something like this and they're enraged. And if they can do something to stop the abuse or to stand shoulder to shoulder with these survivors, I guarantee you that's what they would do. There's a big problem, folks, and we need to wake up and see what's going on. You know, we have all this time now, not only as Americans, but the whole Western world being locked down for this pandemic. We have a lot of time to ruminate, and we have a lot of time to think things through. And there's a whole hell of a lot of people getting red-pilled right now. So when this whole pandemic ends, I have a funny feeling our voice power is going to be magnified incredibly. A lot of people are starting to wake up to what's going on. A lot of people are understanding the corruption that they're living under. And when you start following a case like this and you start looking at the whole entire big picture of this case, you see how everything is rotten from the very core. And we just can't stand for it anymore. We're not going to forget it this time, legacy media. We're not going to forget about it, Buckingham Palace. We're not going to forget about it, aristocracy hiding out in America. We are not going to forget about this case. We're not going to ignore it, and we're not going to be thrown off the path, okay? So the sooner that these people understand that their only choice is to face the music, the better off for everybody. Because if not, we're just going to have to chase them to the gates of hell itself. Dozens of women abused by pedo Epstein, including the Duke of York's accuser, Virginia Roberts, are close to striking a compensation deal with the dead billionaire's estate. Now, again, I don't know the validity of that statement. You know, it's being reported in The Sun. I haven't heard that they're close anywhere else. I do know that they're battling it out. There's been some movement, positive movement towards a deal, but there are some sticking points still. So The Sun might have some information that we don't have, but as far as I know, I wouldn't say that they're close to striking a compensation deal, but I would say that it's within sight, right? It's within touching distance. They could get there if the estate would ease off its demand for the survivors not going after other accomplices. Then sure, they'd be there, and we'd start to see some of these survivors start to get some cash payments. But unfortunately, the executors are who they are, right? Let's just call a spade a spade. Indike and Khan are not reliable people, right? They're not reliable in this case to be arbiters of fair justice. They're Jeffrey Epstein's house lawyers, for Lord's sake. But in court paperwork, lawyers for the survivors stress that any agreement with the sex beast's estate should make clear that certain individuals are not released from any potential liability. Yeah, like I just said. So The Sun wants to say that they're close, and okay, maybe they are. But this is a big sticking point, right? I don't think the lawyers are going to back off on this sticking point. And furthermore, I don't think some of the survivors are going to back off this sticking point. I think that some of these survivors are ready to go all the way to the mattresses with this and see it through to the conclusion. I think that they have been silenced long enough. I think that they have been ignored long enough. And I think they've finally gotten to a point where they know that they're not alone and that their voice is not going to be shouted down by people like Dershowitz and the rest of the foul disgustoids that inhabited Jeffrey Epstein's atmosphere. One bombshell email from lawyer David Boies, seen by The Sun, adds that the certain individuals include Prince Andrew or others to whom our clients were trafficked. That's huge, right? So we all know for sure that there are several people that better not think that they're in the clear here. We know that there are the people that Virginia Roberts has named, you know, the Dubins, the George Mitchells, the Bill Richardsons, the Minskys, the Andrews, et cetera, et cetera. These people, they've been named by Virginia in these court documents already, and we're not going to forget that. And I'm sure that the lawyers certainly aren't going to forget that as they chase justice down those avenues as well. Virginia Roberts, who Mr. Boies represents, claims that she was trafficked by Epstein to Andrew for sex 3 times when she was a teenager. The Prince, 60, has denied Virginia's allegations, but has been unable to explain how he came to be pictured with her in a 2001 photograph. He also released a statement saying he had been appalled by the recent reports of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes, and stating that at no stage during this time with Epstein did he see, witness, or suspect any behavior that led to the financier's arrest. You mean the pedophile's arrest? And furthermore, so we're supposed to believe the Joe Exotic of the Windsor clan? No, we don't believe you, Joe Exotic of England. Nobody's believing you. I already told you, okay? The bears in the great Arctic North don't believe you, nor do the penguins in Antarctica. All right there, Joe Exotic of the Windsor clan? Emails revealing the latest explosive twist in the Epstein scandal were revealed in court documents filed this week in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Lawyers for the survivors of the serial predator who allegedly killed himself in jail in late August are negotiating with co-executors of his estate, Richard Kahn and Darren Indyke. And again, I think I'm pretty clear and on the record about how I feel about Indyke and Kahn. I don't feel like they're noble, I don't feel like they're reliable, and I don't feel like they're fair. They should have never been the executors of this estate. There needs to be a way to remove them. I don't know how any of that works, obviously. Again, I'm not a lawyer. There's people that are, that make much more money than I do that are in those positions to figure that out. But guess what? Where there's a will, there is a way. There has to be some sort of situation where Kahn and Indyke are no longer involved. Maybe charge them criminally in the RICO case, and that'll certainly get him out of Dodge, right? The email from David Boies sent on April 7th this year makes it clear that any settlement would not allow Prince Andrew to be released. He said, "I am now in agreement that we should move forward with the claims process." Yeah, look, I'm way down too. These ladies have been waiting for their money for way too long. They have been waiting to move on with their lives for way too long. It is time for them to be made as whole as possible financially. Give them their money, let them get on with their lives, especially now. There's going to be opportunities for investments, right? Look, the market's down all over the world. The economy's, it's rough. But if you have a couple of shekels in your pocket, a few racks to throw around, you can start building wealth for the future right now. So it's important that we get these girls the money as fast as possible so they can move on with their lives. Again, though, for those survivors who are going to go all the way, they're willing to go all the way to the very end of this to make sure that the co-conspirators are brought down as well. I'll tell you what, you got to give them nothing but respect and credit for the courage that they're showing. Mr. Boies adds that survivors who accept an award will have a space to make clear that certain individuals, e.g. Prince Andrew or others to whom our clients were trafficked, are not released. And this is important, right? It's like, very important, actually. It can't be stated enough how important it is that these NDAs aren't respected and they're not put into place, because then everybody's going to get off, right? All of these people are going to get off. That was their plan with this immunity deal in the first place, and they always thought that their cash settlements would be enough to buy people's silence, to buy these girls off whose lives they've ruined. Well, here we are. And it's not one girl, it's not two girls, it's not three girls, it's dozens of girls coming together to stand up and say, guess what? You were wrong. We're coming after you, we're coming after your friends, and we're not going to accept being bought off this time. This means that if Epstein's survivors receive payments expected to be in the millions of pounds, they can still go after the Duke. Yeah, so what? He has liability as well if he's proven to be involved in any of the abuse of these girls. If he's proven to be hanging out with Epstein as they're being abused. Hell yeah, he's liable. Hell yeah, they should go after him, and they should get as many racks as they possibly can. But Epstein's estate is willing to give Ghislaine Maxwell immunity as part of the arrangement and shell out to survivors on her behalf, the court papers reveal. What did I tell you, folks? You know why, right? Ghislaine Maxwell is still pulling the strings from behind the curtain. Don't be naive. Why is she even being talked about getting immunity in any of this shit? Zero chance that should occur, okay? Ghislaine Maxwell is the co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein's and the brains behind the operation, like I said. Jeffrey Epstein was the street boss, the acting boss, but behind the scenes, Ghislaine Maxwell was certainly the brains of the operation. She should never, ever be talked about in any sort of immunity deal, ever. The British co-conspirator is accused of being Epstein's pimp, procuring him girls, and even taking part in the abuse. She has denied all claims against her. Virginia is also suing Maxwell 58 for defamation in a separate legal case. Legal paperwork filed in the case yesterday indicated that Virginia's lawyers believe Maxwell was communicating using a secret email account. And I'm sure she's navigating the internet in many other ways. We talked about her sisters and how they were involved in starting up the internet with Magellan, one of the first browsers. We've talked about how they're involved in creating software. You think they're not able to set her up on the Tor or the Onion so she can communicate via dark web? Come on now. A document lodged with a New York court, but still kept secret from the public, is headlined "Motion to Compel Ghislaine Maxwell to Produce Data from Undisclosed Email Account." Maxwell, a close pal of Prince Andrew, aka Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, has previously been revealed to have been in email contact with the royal. Just perpetuating their criminal organization, no big deal. Just going on with the criminal conspiracy, no, nothing to see here, folks. No big deal. It's a royal doing it. And Lady Ghislaine Maxwell, they're involved in charities. They can never be involved in what you're accusing them of. Oh, you have pictures? We don't believe it. You have evidence? We don't believe that either. We believe Prince Andrew. Said nobody ever. A BBC Panorama investigation last year found that Andrew, aka Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, sent an email to Maxwell at 5:50 a.m. in January 2015 to let her know he had specific questions about Virginia Roberts. Oh yeah, well, what were you guys doing there? Well, you're figuring out a way to bribe her, to intimidate her, to get rid of her, because we know that's how you people roll. Let's see the emails. All of them. Seize them all. Rico for everybody. The prince asked Maxwell, let me know when we can talk. Got some specific questions to ask you about Virginia Roberts. Well, I thought he didn't know her. I thought that the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family had never been around Virginia Roberts. I thought he had no idea who she was. That couldn't be the picture that he was in with her. My fingers are too fat. I don't sweat. I was wearing the wrong kit. I was eating pizza. Give me a break with this guy already. She responded, have some info. Call me when you have a moment. Imagine that. These two scumbags are still in contact all these years later. Who knows what secrets they're trading in, what sort of blackmail they're trading in, and who knows the scope of Prince Andrew, a.k.a. Joe Exotic of the Windsor family. Well, who knows the scope of his involvement in this whole entire trafficking ring? Was he getting money from Epstein? Were they laundering money to Epstein? I know Epstein paid off some of Fergie's bills. Where did that money originate? Was that money gained through ill-gotten gains? If so, that implicates Fergie and Prince Andrew in a RICO case as well. I mean, you know, I'm not the great Inspector Attorney General Berman or anything, but I can put two and two together. All right. So this is good news in the regard of the girls are going to get their cash payments, and the lawyers for the girls aren't going to be bullied into any sort of stupid-ass NDA or anything like that, that's great news, right? It's good to hear that from David Boies, the most powerful lawyer involved in this. It's good to hear that he is taking that stance, right? Because if he's taking that stance, then I'm sure the rest of the office is on board as well, and they're going to formulate a game plan going forward to crush these clowns. What bothers me here, though, is towards the end when we're talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, how the document that's lodged with the court, the motion to compel her, I don't like any of that, right? Especially considering they're talking about how she's, going to get immunity. They want her to get immunity as part of the deal. And what did I tell you when she came out in the Sun talking about Laura Goldman? I told you that night. Before anybody else started chirping about it, I told you that night what was going on. That she was firing shots over the bow, threatening Indike and Khan because she knows where the skeletons are buried. Now all of a sudden, in court papers, they're talking about immunity for Lady Ghislaine as well. There are no more coincidences in this case, folks. We can't operate thinking, oh, that's just a coincidence. Because if we do, then we're going to be bamboozled by their gaslighting. And I, for one, am done being gaslit by anybody. The news media, the Jeffrey Epstein's people, it does not matter. There will be no gaslighting allowed, okay? These people must be brought to justice. And the battle is raging now. After the what we had going on in the 11th Circuit Court and the way that the two knucklehead judges on the court ruled, it was that's definitely a setback, right? That's definitely a rough one. But it's like a heavyweight championship fight. What did you think? It was going to be easy taking down people like this? Hell no. You step into the ring with the champion, you're going to get clipped eventually. And when you get clipped, the question becomes, do you get up off of the canvas, take the center of the ring, bite down on your mouthpiece, and throw back? Or do you sit on your stool and say no mas and quit? I know for me, running's never been an option. The only option in this case, going forward, is for us to get off the canvas, stand in the middle of the ring, and fire back with just as much fury and just as much force. Because these people, they're not just going to give in. They're not going to give up. These are the sort of people that are looking for, we're going to be in a fist fight with these people, right? These people they're not going to just back down. Ghislaine Maxwell's not just going to turn herself in. It's going to be a fight. So got to be prepared for the ups and downs going forward. We can't get too discouraged. I've seen people getting discouraged about the ruling. It sucks, don't get me wrong, but remember, let's keep everything in context and let's keep everything in perspective. It was only 3 members of the 11th Circuit Court, and one of the 3 had a fiery dissent. So what that means is the whole entire 11th Circuit, when they're impaneled, I have a very good feeling that they're going to want to see this case. And then we'll see what happens when the whole entire 11th Circuit Court gets their teeth into it. But just, I know it's frustrating to see stuff like this. I know it's discouraging, but we knew going into this, covering this case from all the twists and turns we've already come across. We knew that it wasn't going to be easy to see these people to justice. We knew that there'd be bumps in the road and there'd be points during the fight where things got hairy. And here we are. This is one of those moments. But guess what? The battle rages on, folks. The battle rages on. And I know myself, I can't speak for anybody else, but I know for myself, I plan on chasing these people to the gates of hell itself, if that's what it takes. Because there is no way that the genie can ever go back into the bottle now, right? We've already seen what's behind the curtain, and there's zero chance that I ever step back and throw my hands up and say, well, that's it. There's nothing left to do. Because there's always something left to do. There's always another turn to make. Right? Another move to make, another way to try and move things forward. And you see that with the lawyers from the defense here, from the girls. The survivors' lawyers, They don't get frustrated. They just keep it moving. Okay, that's fine. Moving on to the next. We'll escalate it to the next level. And that's exactly what they're doing, and that's exactly what's going to keep occurring in this case. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that while it's definitely a shot to the gut, it's definitely a big shot to catch. It's not the end, right? It is not the end. They're not going to get off, and that immunity deal is still imperiled because the one thing I will say about the justice system in the United States is the way you can escalate it up the ladder, right? That's definitely a good thing, and we'll see what happens when the whole entire 11th Circuit is impaneled. But until then, all focus must be on what's going on in the Virgin Islands and with the estate. The full court press is on down there, folks, and we're getting to a point where we're going to see some movement one way or the other. So as usual, on the Jeffrey Epstein podcast, The Jeffrey Epstein Show, we'll be following that very, very closely. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, everybody, until tomorrow, I hope you all have a magnificent evening.